All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the On Tap podcast here. We're coming back to you after a long hiatus. We have a special episode for you today. Our good friend and previous podcast guest, DECA Al, was recently taken into custody, and we brought his brother, Mitch, on here to give us some more information and just kind of explain the situation and what's going on and give us some facts. Mitch, if you want to take it away. The floor is yours.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me on today. And I definitely want to explain some of the different things that are going on with Al's situation. Obviously, with it being an open investigation, there's going to be things that, we can't really talk about. But there's a lot of facts and a lot of things that I think it's important for the community to know and understand. And also, part of not only covering Al's story and Al's situation, I want to cover, cannabis in general in the state of Minnesota. How's it going, right? 2.5 years since legalization, where we're at. What are the dispensaries looking like?
Yeah.
What are the, what's the product that's out on the market? What's going on? The rules, the regulations. We'll talk a little bit about the Minnesota State Constitution.
Yeah.
So some interesting things I've got to bring to the audience today that I think.
What do you want to talk about first? Do you want to talk about Al's situation first?
Yeah, I do. I really want to talk about Al's situation here. So as a lot of people in the community know, his house was raided.
Very publicly.
Very publicly, right? And they got him, right? They got this...
very performative.
They put on a show for sure.
Yeah, and they got this this horrible person off the streets, right? This evil person that grows cannabis, right?
Yeah.
You're growing cannabis. You have cannabis. It's legal, but you're a horrible person for doing it.
Yeah.
And so, it's interesting when you look at this case and this situation because with law enforcement, allegedly they followed him for 2 months and watched him for 2 months. When they ambushed him in his Tesla and picked him up, he had his kids with him. 2 young children, a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. The 5-year-old has special needs. He's mentally handicapped. I guess I don't really understand how law enforcement can watch him for 2 months and not know that he had kids. First off,
that was the whole thing. They said they didn't know that he had kids. Or didn't know they had kids with him.
Yeah, we have video footage actually from the police raiding the property, and they literally said they had no idea he had kids. And I just couldn't. I guess I don't really understand if you watch somebody for 2 months how you don't know he doesn't have kids. It's
especially
kind of
considering part of his daily commute involves going
right.
first thing in the morning, going to childcare.
Right.
That's
and
crazy.
to have weapons drawn pointed at him and the kids it's crazy.
Right. And part of the thing they said is he tried to flee or something along those lines, I think is part of it. Again, I don't want to talk too much about the investigation, but it's really interesting because I guess if you're driving down a road in a remote area in this country and you have police surround you with military gear, which is another thing I want to talk about because they brought an MRAP out.
Which is what? Can you explain what an MRAP is?
Yeah, so an MRAP is an armored military vehicle. It's actually not meant for policing communities. It's funny because in researching, of course, a lot of us do this now, I think, we use AI, artificial intelligence, and I enjoy having conversations with my AI. And so I literally just asked AI what an MRAP is and the definition and what the capabilities are and things of that nature. One of the first things that AI tells me is it's not for community policing, right? So it's interesting that AI understands this aspect of it.
Like a highly specific militarized
right.
vehicle.
And so when I did some research on it, this particular piece of military gear was created during the Afghanistan and Iraq wars because the number one killer of U.S. soldiers was IEDs. And so they needed to make improvised explosive devices, of course. So I think we all are familiar with that term.
Yeah.
But anyways, they had to make a vehicle to protect our soldiers that are overseas fighting for our freedom, which makes sense.
So this thing is obviously heavily armored.
Heavily armored.
This is typically, if you've been watching someone for 2 months,
right,
you're under the assumption that they're just growing cannabis.
Correct.
You wouldn't be under the assumption that they have some sort of weapons that you would need a heavily armored vehicle for, right? Or is this just standard protocol? To me, it just seems very performative.
Yeah, and I guess that's a question you'd have to ask the local law enforcement. the drug task force. I believe it's the East Central Drug Task Force that collaborated on this, and they come together and we'll do these raids, which, I certainly appreciate their service to the community, because there are dangerous people in the community that need to be taken out and need to be put in jail. There's no doubt about that. So I'm not, and I want to be clear on that. I definitely don't want to criticize law enforcement for the great things that they do for our community. It shouldn't be a total demonizing situation, right? And I know, they do that to my brother. They demonize my brother, and they don't want to look at any other aspect or any laws or any other specifics within a conversation about this. But I'm not going to do the same thing they're doing. I have a lot of respect for law enforcement, and I do understand they put their lives at risk every day, and I do appreciate that. So for any law enforcement listening, thank you for your service, and I really appreciate it. I just question the tactics is all, right? What kind of community do we want to live in? And I might add, with my brother, he has a criminal history, no doubt. If you look at his criminal history, it's all related to cannabis, growing a plant.
Yeah. The trouble is they see the sheet.
Right.
They don't see that.
Right.
They don't see the harmless aspect of it.
Right.
They see this guy's a felon.
Right.
Watch him.
Right. And, and I can understand it. I can appreciate it, because I know that law enforcement goes after dangerous people. My brother's not one of them.
Right.
And that's the reality of this. Is a sad reality. Are we going to live in a state and a country where we're not allowed basic freedoms? I mean, think about it from this fundamental level. Explain to me where in the United States Constitution, the state of Minnesota Constitution, or anywhere where government has a right inherently to dictate to us as a free people what we can and cannot do with our body and mind.
Yeah. Obviously, this is public information.
Correct.
What is Al being charged with? What did they take him in under?
Yeah, so the charges are all related to, I believe, possession of marijuana, selling marijuana, things of that nature. I actually, and I apologize for that, I actually don't know the specific legal language as to what they're charging him for. But I do understand that it's a first-degree charge. And
they
so
changed them too, correct?
They did.
Wasn't it originally 5?
Right. It is. It's down to 2. There's a first-degree and a third-degree charge. And of course, I'm not a lawyer, right? So I don't know exactly how to explain every specific thing as it pertains to the legal side of this.
That and things change. So, with cases,
right.
A week from now it could be different. They could switch it up and change their mind on another thing too. So it's constantly adapting.
Right, 100%. And I think when we pull this together and we look at it and we think about the situation in totality, I think one of the things that I think about in any given situation when you talk about enforcing laws and putting people in jail, I mean, it's a pretty heavy-handed thing to take away their freedom, and put them in a cage. Right, that's a big thing. That's a serious thing. And so, at the end of the day, you think about this and you go, okay, well, what people are we putting in jail, right? And we'd all like to think that we put the most violent, horrible, I guess evil, if you want to use a simple term like that, people in jail. And that's kind of the idea behind it from a societal sense. It's people that I think, and this is the way I look at it at a fundamental level, the people that provide a deficit to your society, that hurt others, that damage others, property, right? Steal things from people. It's people that are damaging your community and your society. And I just find it interesting because Al is not that.
No.
He's actually somebody that...
He couldn't be further from it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so he's a net gain for the community. And that's part of what I wanted to talk about today. I was really shocked when my brother went to jail, because I obviously don't have involvement with all the things that he's got going on. I have my own life going on, of course, right? So I don't know all these things. I couldn't believe how many people reached out to me via Facebook to tell me their stories.
I think it's a good plug to, even with me and Cody,
specifically with On Tap and the Sticks.
Yeah.
We had I don't think anyone actually knows this. We never really made this public, but for the second time we did On Tap and the Sticks, we wanted to do a huge costume party,
right?
Or costume contest for Halloween. And we wanted to do $1,000 costume contest. And that was going to be the whole big deal. We had a sponsor lined up for it and everything. At the very last minute, I want to say the day before, the sponsor backed out. And Al stepped up and took that on and said, I will give you the $1,000.
Right.
I will sponsor the costume contest. And I was like, wow, this is actually nuts.
Right.
Obviously, we tried to make it work so that he had a lot more value on his end, and we
Right.
always promote the guy, give him as much publicity as we can,
Absolutely.
have him on the podcast, whatever. But and at the end of the day, the guy is, like you said, he's definitely a net positive for the community, no doubt. He's a very nice guy, so willing to help anyone.
Yeah, definitely. Like he, well, a little background, like me and him worked together a lot, like getting his packaging and products and overall brand kind of dissecting like his characteristics and personality and working with that and kind of like giving it a visual, just making it visually, it's like there was so much like research into him, but just like, like genuinely, like, for people that don't know him or have never even seen him and only seen him the first time in the headlines, like this guy, I've never met a more genuine, passionate, and like real person that really cares about putting out good product.
Right.
And not just the product itself, but the whole point in doing everything is clean and it is organic, like no added solvents, no nothing. Like throughout the whole process, he, like, his hands made it throughout the whole process and outsourced it once, even if it could have been 10 times more profitable.
Oh, for
if he
sure.
scaled it up.
It's not about the profit.
Right. But
that's
the
thing.
He genuinely cared about people.
I know.
And like a lot of his clients were like cancer patients. And like he would make these crazy commutes like to go deliver these products. I mean, I don't.
Yeah, and to that point, Bodie, I actually have some of these stories. Like I told you, there's a lot of people that reached out to me on Facebook, and so I just wanted to kind of read some of these things that people said about him, because I just think it's, it's amazing. I mean, some of the people that reach out, it's just hard to believe.
And part of the effort too in like establishing his brand was to convey to the customer like, hey, this is something you can trust.
Correct.
Because he first approached me, I want to say, it was probably, I can't even remember how long ago.
A couple years ago, probably.
But
3 years ago.
His first thing was, hey, I need something that can like, I need to put my like, something that says this is from me, because there was a bunch of carts floating around locally that they were adding, they were just putting like other drugs inside these vape pens.
Yes, that is a huge problem in the industry.
And it's like, so it's like, holy shit, this actually is like some real shit.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And I've got some facts on that too, as far as the state regulations and some of these things, and how the state regulations actually make the product being produced in the state less safe. And we'll talk about that. It's really an interesting conversation. It's real technical. I did do a lot of research to understand this, but it's really, really cool. It's really interesting when you actually look into the facts of something and you start understanding what's going on here. But I wanted to briefly read some of these, I guess, I don't know, for lack of a better word, testimonials. And I know I had, it was funny, I was just having a conversation with my other brother, Phil, on the way here, and he had a gentleman that was on a call with him, and he joined the call, so it was a 3-way call. And this guy was talking about when he had to move from Forest Lake, or maybe it was Pine City to Forest Lake, I can't remember exactly where he was moving, but he didn't have any help. And my brother literally paid people to go help him. He didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
He just did it because that's who he is.
Yeah. Yes.
If you reach out and ask for help, my brother,
he will help.
He will help you.
Yes.
Like,
to
that's
any
how he
capacity
is.
that he can, he will.
He's just that way. He's a very, very generous person.
And this is the same brother who, after his house burned down with his 10 kids.
His house burned down a year ago.
And he moved in with Al.
Well, he had to move into that duplex because they had no property they had no place to live.
Like same day, he was there on the ground.
Yep.
Helping put out the fire.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Like,
100%. Yeah, no, this is just his personality. If you spend 5 minutes around my brother, you pick it. It's not that hard to figure out some of his personality after talking to him briefly. So you'll see this. I just want to read a couple of these things. I just think they're fascinating. I just want to say this too. I don't have time to read. Well, I don't think we'd have time to read all of the things that I've had people send me. But I just, again, wanted to read a few of them and give you a couple of examples. So this is someone that takes care of his children. So, he's, what she said was, and I just don't really want to use people's names because I don't want to alienate anyone. So I apologize. I mean, I certainly don't mind that transparency, but it's just one of those deals. So, but she says that she's had his daughter, who's 3 years old, since November of 2024. And what she says is Al has been hands down nothing but an amazing daycare parent and friend. He is a wonderful daddy and loves his kids the most. I've seen firsthand how he has never put his kids in any harm and has done nothing but the best for them both. He's been honest and has communicated with me since day one. So on top of that, I've got a couple other, these ones are really good. When I got these, I was like, oh my God, he really is making a difference, right? Mm-hmm. So the way that DECA earned my respect and loyalty is that my grandma, who has fibromyalgia, that I was living with to help take care of, she smokes a little bit of cannabis or rubs a topical cream on her skin, and it helps her pain enough to let her lead a somewhat normal life. I had asked DECA about clones and what I would do with it, and he's like, out of respect for you, there's some of these testimonials, right? It's people texting me.
Yes.
So for what you're doing, here's 3, man. And he gave me the chance to provide medicine for my grandma out of the kindness of his heart. Tell me that's a man worthy of my respect and loyalty. And I see how much love he has for his kids, and more parents should be like DECA and one love. Mm-hmm. I have another one here. And again, I'm not going to read all of these, but I just wanted to give you guys a couple of these. So I fatefully met Al when I was at one of the darkest points of my life. As a single mom of a single mom of 2 young boys, I battled PTSD, ADHD, major depression disorder, and severe trauma. I didn't have anybody in my life showing me consistency, and trusting people is terrifying to me. But Al immediately brought genuine care, friendship, and safety into my life. He was the only person to check on my boys, and I almost daily, just to see if they were doing all right. On top of gaining a big brother, he also guided me through my first grow, which I am forever grateful for, because I can now successfully grow my own medicine. Al is a rare gem, and our community feels less safe in his absence. So I guess at the end of the day, I mean, are those the type of people that we want to put in jail? Fundamentally speaking, I mean, we can talk about the laws. We can talk about what's legal.
Yeah.
Is it right?
There's 2 sides to the coin here, obviously.
100%.
We
100%.
We want to make sure that things are legal, because the average person's interpretation of what legal means is safe.
Correct.
But I think that's what we're coming down to. In this situation, legal, in my mind, in the cannabis industry, does not mean safe.
Right.
Because there's specific rules that are set up to sort of make sure that it's not.
Right.
So if you could run us through some of that information, I think that's super interesting.
Yeah. So there are so many fascinating things with the cannabis industry. And I think there's a lot of things to talk about here. Let's talk about how long cannabis has been legal for. I think I mentioned earlier in the podcast here. 2.5 years. Cannabis has been legal.
Yeah, but what is legal? Because I mean, can I, as a average citizen, have a joint in my pocket and smoke it outside a pizza pub after I'm done eating dinner with my family? What is the legality? I have no idea how that.
Right.
I don't know. I feel like it's so mystified.
Right. And part of that is, when you're talking about possessing a joint, that's legal, because you can have or possess up to 2 pounds. But you're talking about consuming it now in a public place.
And that's where it's illegal.
Well, not necessarily. Some of these laws, and to be honest with you, I don't even know myself.
It's all where, I would assume.
It's all, well, I mean, what are the city ordinances? What does the county have for regulation? What is right? I mean, you start diving into this, and it's like, okay, well, there's a lot of confusion here. I think
city, county, state, federal, all different rules.
Right, all different rules.
And they can contradict each other, correct?
Oh, and they absolutely do. They absolutely do.
Is it even fully set up? Like when it comes to state level, like are they still tinkering around with finalizing everything, or like, because I mean, like it seems like they're coming out with new revisions. Like
it seems vague.
Yes.
It seems so vague.
Yeah, there is, and to be honest with you guys, I've read the rule book from OCM on how to operate a cannabis business.
And OCM is what?
Sorry, it's
I hear that those 3 letters tossed around a lot.
Yeah, it's the Office of Cannabis Management. And so it's really interesting, actually, in this conversation, because we have a couple of different drugs, if you will, that are legal in the state. One is alcohol. We all know, right? We know the impacts of alcohol, the amount of law enforcement interaction that people have, whether it's DUIs, whether it's abusing spouses, whether it's fights, drunkenness. We know the problems that alcohol causes.
The tricky part is it's all perspective and optics.
It is.
It really is just, well, this has been accepted for so long, but this hasn't.
Right.
I would say arguably cannabis is way more of a net positive than alcohol, you know? I mean,
You want to know an interesting thing? I remember when I was in college, I wrote a paper about these topics, about the war on drugs and things of that nature. And I remember researching alcohol, and I found a study that showed that alcohol is the most dangerous drug in the world.
I could totally see it.
It's more dangerous than methamphetamines, cocaine, heroin. More dangerous? People are like, well, how is that even possible? Well, it's the amount of law enforcement interactions that come from using alcohol, from being drunk.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not to say that, we should have heroin and meth because alcohol is more dangerous. I'm not suggesting that.
Right.
That's a little bit over the top.
There's
on
a
it.
dynamic here that we also have to dissect, that it's socially acceptable.
Oh,
and
then
not
that's- yes.
only acceptable, but also
Exactly.
encouraged.
Yes.
That it's like you do
Glamorized.
this when you
Yeah.
let loose. This is what you do.
Yeah.
Social lubricant.
Exactly.
100%. Yeah. And the glamorization of it and the social acceptance of alcohol is actually part of the reason why it is considered as dangerous as it is. That
So
really is
easily
a factor.
accessible too.
100%.
I mean, anywhere.
Very easily accessible. So we have alcohol here on one hand, okay? The state regulates alcohol, obviously. It's a highly regulated industry, like cannabis is, or firearms, or other industries that are highly regulated. So you guys have any idea how many employees the state of Minnesota has to regulate alcohol?
No.
20 to 25
For the whole state.
for the whole state. for
That are
alcohol.
choosing actively what regulations they place on alcohol.
Well, it's the enforcement of alcohol regulations and ensuring that distilleries and liquor stores and things of that nature are following all the regulations. They have 20 to 25 employees.
This is enforcement, or the people that are creating the rules for it,
So
or is it a mix of both?
it's just state of Minnesota employees. Because
Okay.
if you start looking at enforcement, then you could have an argument where you can include all local law enforcement.
Yeah,
and
right,
I mean,
right.
it could really expand beyond that. I'm saying that
This is just their job.
this is just their job. There's 20 to 25 people, regulators, if you will, at the state of Minnesota that, regulate alcohol.
And
20 to
this
25.
is
So-
from what percentage it can be sold, and what quantities, and what volumes, and where,
Yes.
and how.
Yep. It's all the specifics.
Yeah.
Right. It's all the details. And really, it's in the interest of safety. That's why we'd have 20 to 25 regulators that are hired by the state of Minnesota to enforce these things and make sure the rules are being followed, and also, write rules that need to be changed.
So are these the
So-
same people that they would like send out for, I assume, like inspections
Correct.
or something? Okay.
Correct.
So
Yep.
they're not only responsible for the legislature, but also boots on the ground, checking out in the field.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. As far as I know, I mean, and I will preface it with this because there may be somebody that's listening that actually works in this area, and they might be like, well, that's not what I do. Right.
Yeah,
I
that's not how
I
it
don't work
works.
in that
Yeah.
agency,
Yeah.
so I don't know all the specifics, but that's my
But
understanding
just,
with my
overall,
research.
overarching. Yeah.
Correct. I just bring this up because I just wanted to ask you guys, how many people do you think we have in the state of Minnesota that are employed by the state to regulate cannabis?
I would have no idea.
150.
And that was just put in place within the last 2.5 years.
Correct. And not only that, it's an entire state agency. It's an entire state agency. We created, our taxpayers' money is going to creating an entire state agency to regulate cannabis. So we have 25 people for alcohol, 150 for cannabis. Now, in fairness, let's have this conversation because it's setting up a new industry. So, of course, you're going to need more people.
Right.
But are those 150 people temporary? No. They're permanent employees.
I mean, the weight and the delta between how many liquor stores there are and how many dispensaries there are, it's got to be 100 to 1.
Right.
I mean, it's not even close.
Right.
So the difference in how many eyes are on it
Right.
says to me that this is just more profitable. Or my other thought is, obviously we live in a state where they're very comfortable spending the money that we give them. And I think this is just a very easy way to blow through it.
Right. Well, and that's kind of my thing too. I look at these numbers when I research this and I wonder, why do we need that many people to regulate an industry, a plant that grows naturally? Alcohol can kill people. You can drink enough alcohol to die. You can't actually consume enough cannabis to die. So where's the why? Why is there this ratio? Why do we spend this much money? And what it comes down to, I think, and you touched on it a little bit, Cody. You're talking about revenue, taxes. The state of Minnesota taxes cannabis at 22%. So almost a quarter of the profits within the industry go to the state. And what does the state do with that tax money?
Well, we're finding out right now.
We are finding out right now, right?
Nothing that we like, it seems like.
Right.
And it's funny because we were talking about this a little bit off camera, but it's like we live in a state where we're under the guise of Minnesota is so for the people.
Right.
That's not the case.
Right.
It's really not. And it seems like there's all these issues that are so politicized in our area specifically that's like it's all on the Republicans. It's all on the Democrats.
Right.
It's like it's not.
Right.
And the average person in average conversations, that doesn't come up.
Right.
These philosophies, they're just generated.
Right.
And it does really truly feel like, look over here because we got this going on over here.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Why don't we let the monkeys fight over this banana while we're taking down the trees?
You're not wrong. I mean, and you look at the chaos in our state. You look at the situations, and I'm not trying to take sides. I'm not trying to say Democrat, Republican, whatever. I'm not having those arguments. I mean, good ideas are good ideas. Good people are good people. Nefarious people are nefarious people. Why does it have to be more complicated than this? Why does it have to be people are demonized? Why does it have to be we hate each other? Over what? Because you wear a red hat or you like the Democrats or whatever it is, right? I mean, it's ridiculous. The whole premise of it is asinine, to be honest with you, and it's kind of playing into their hand. But here we have a situation where, why did they go and get Al? Somebody that's helping the community out, somebody that cares about people in a real way. It's money. It's taxes. That's what it's about. Is it about making things more safe? Is it about building communities? No, it's about taxes. It's about money.
Yeah.
And let me talk a little bit about that. Because people will say, well, yeah, just this one thing or this. Well, no, it's more than that, right?
Let me play devil's advocate here for a second.
Absolutely.
From an outside perspective, if you didn't know him and you didn't know what was going on, I would also be in the same boat. I would assume this guy had a lot of cannabis.
Right.
And he was obviously in some sort of a distribution triangle with this.
Sure.
Let's get him out of there.
Right.
I mean, that is the perspective of the law, and from that perspective, I do think that makes sense. Mm-hmm. However, knowing the dynamic of who he is, what he does, and the things he does, I think that definitely changes it, where it's like,
does.
I'm not saying instead of cracking down, because I think a lot of people in his situation probably would abuse that power that he has to the point where it's like, yeah, this is not a good person. We do need to get him out of that community. Mm-hmm. But that's not this scenario.
Right.
It's really not.
It's not. And, it's these biases that people have and the stories that people spin and these ideas that people have kind of cemented deeply in our minds as far as like, wow, these people are good and these people are bad. And we think through these simple terms, right? So that kind of plays into these things. And I guess to me, if someone is breaking the law with cannabis, I do understand it, right? You do need to have regulations and rules because of just what you said, Cody. But are we sending an MRAP? A military vehicle designed to protect soldiers in a war zone? Are we saying an NRAP? Or are we sending a person that looks like me with a clipboard and a fine and taking those products and fining the person? What's the proper penalty here? Again, I'm not suggesting there should be no penalty, but what's the proper tactic?
Yeah, if you have the resources to surveil him for 2 months,
right,
you would think that they would understand this isn't El Chapo.
Right. Well, and that's the other funny thing.
You know what I
right?
mean? It's like what? It's like what?
Right.
And then obviously you can't do this for every single scenario, but why is there not more things in place? It's like this guy obviously has logistics down from a perspective that the average person couldn't.
And wouldn't it be one could almost argue too that on a state level, they would almost be incentivized to send someone in with a clipboard for the promise of, like you said, since he has the logistics set up, he has the cadence down and the contacts. It's like, well, he would be one would say be very valuable for future revenue for the state. If he was to cough up all that.
Right.
It's like why pluck the roots out?
Right.
When you could just like trim the leaves a little bit.
Right.
Keep the system going.
Right.
Yeah.
It makes the most sense. But again, we're talking about things that make sense to average people.
Yeah.
We're not lawyers. We're not special. We don't Right. And that's part of it that's frustrating. And I think
Yeah.
it is frustrating for a lot of just average citizens in this world because you have lawyers and politicians and people that tell you that they know best.
Yeah.
They know what's best for you. And you're an average person. Go sit in the corner and lay by your dish. That's the message.
Yes.
Because this is the law. Because we said so.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, how many of our politicians are corrupt? How many of them are getting kickbacks? How many of them are making a... So what you're telling me is if I wear a suit and tie, then I can be a criminal?
And how many...
It's
I don't
all
know.
about the gray area.
I don't know. What's the answer there?
No, you're right. There's too many of these career politicians getting rich. Getting rich for doing what?
Right.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. It's crazy to me that we live in a state that claims to be so for and pro small business, when in reality it seems to be the exact opposite.
Well,
why isn't there a clearer path for someone like him to be legit?
Yeah.
When in reality it's actually set up exact opposite.
And
it's set up
especially-
for the monopolies to form.
And
Right.
Yep.
And touching on that too, it's like even just the legalization of it, of Minnesota saying like, hey, we want to do this with the promise of small businesses growing. And it's like, well, 2 years later, it really doesn't seem like that. It really doesn't seem like anything is tangibly like it's, there aren't dispensaries popping up everywhere.
There isn't any.
You
And
know,
a lot of them are
it's-
closing. And people have invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into this industry as small business owners trying to get started up. And the state of Minnesota, local and city governments have been in their way at every turn.
Yeah.
And in that process, these people are losing tons of money trying to play by the rules. And I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to talk about this. And I want to talk about the rollout. And I want to talk about what the state of Minnesota did because, these politicians, they have all these grandiose ideas. We're going to help the people. We're going to have social equity, right? We're going to help the people that are damaged the most by our cannabis regulations over the years. So they did. They set up this program, and it sounded so great. And it's just awesome, right? They help all these people that have been convicted or people like myself who are a fully disabled vet. I'm a social equity applicant, okay? They're going to help us.
Just to be clear, this was
Yes.
like their first initial rollout when they announced that this was like the first thing they put
Correct.
in place was this lottery system, correct?
Yeah. So the lottery system, the idea behind it, at least this is what the politicians told us, because as we have this conversation, we're going to find out that it didn't actually come to fruition, right? They said that they were going to help the little guy, right? They're going to help the social equity applicants, the disabled vets, the people that have been punished the most by cannabis laws, people like my brother, right? That are trying to do good things for a community. So they put it out, and when they first put out the applications, they actually never gave us any rules or regulations. They said, here's what you need to do. You need to do all these write-ups, complex business plans, which are incredibly difficult to do. What was interesting about the industry at that time, too, was all these lawyers, legal offices, and other people were predatorily going and approaching these social equity applicants to write these applications for them. And sometimes they would charge $20,000 or $30,000 just to write it up so they could. So you're telling me that the poorest people, the people that are hurt the most, are being, they're not getting any clear direction on what they need to do, how to fill out the application, how the process is going to work. They communicate it terribly to all of us. And I think I speak for a lot of social equity applicants in the state. They're angry about it because of what happened. So they roll it out. They take all of our applications. They say, well, we're going to do a lottery.
And they don't pick all of them.
They don't pick all of them, yeah.
This is just for a chance to get it, correct?
Yeah, and the idea behind it was instead of letting big business come in here and just take the market over because they have the millions and millions of dollars they're bringing from California, Colorado, Washington, and other legalized states, we want local growers. We want small business. We want people who have been hurt the most. We want disabled vets. We want other folks like that to be a part of this industry. And so that's the idea, is to give us first crack at it, right?
Which it sounds great.
Sounds great. It sounds fantastic. So you have all these people. And I know a lot of them, actually. And you have all these people going into the market, and they are working their butts off to get this stuff put together and get put in the lottery. And we all have these aspirations, and we're all excited, right? And the state of Minnesota gets to the time where, and first off with the lottery, just to understand this, so they would only give out a certain amount of licenses per the section of the industry that you're going to be in.
So this is specifically if you fall under any of these categories,
right,
you can enter the lottery for a chance at a license to grow.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's what it is, a license to grow. And so basically they were saying, hey, you know, we're going to approve 10 manufacturers.
Commercially.
We're going to, yes.
Grow commercially. Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So we can put it on store shelves and dispensaries
Got
or,
it.
you know, open micro businesses, meso businesses, right? Which are kind of designed for the little guy. That's the license I hold. Or, well, I will get into that. I actually don't hold that license because, anyway, I do have a preliminary license, but we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Okay.
So anyways, we get to this lottery, okay, and the state is about to roll it out. They're about to draw the lottery, and then they stop it. And they say, no. Well, what happened? Big business tried to manipulate the system. They didn't get included in the lottery. They sued the state of Minnesota. The state of Minnesota folded like a lawn chair in a hurricane.
Under the guise of discrimination?
No.
Or what?
They categorized it under the guise of not being included in the social equity application. They were claiming, and there's all sorts of nefarious things that were going on, right? Because you would have these big business owners come in, buy the licenses for manufacturing or for cultivation or whatever it is from social equity applicants. And then they were putting in multiple applications, and they were flooding the zone essentially because these big businesses figured, well, we're going to get included if we flood the zone. And it's a manipulation of the system. I mean, it's illegal, but, you know, it's okay to do illegal things when it fits the government's narrative. I don't know. I don't really understand why they allow these things. But so the state of Minnesota gets sued, and again, they fold, and they stop the lottery. Well, then all the social equity applicants are like, well, hold on a second. We dumped all this money into preparing to get into the market, and you guys took it from us. And then they just quietly put us into the regular pool.
With no refunds.
Oh, they didn't refund
any money
anyone.
Spent on.
Well, I shouldn't say they didn't refund anyone. In fairness, they allowed people to refund if they wanted to pull back from the market. So they did allow for a refund.
Well, you would have to yank everything. You would
Right.
have to pull yourself
Right.
off the list.
Yeah, you would basically not be in the market anymore, and some people did that. So they did offer a refund. In fairness, but they and then they you know, the application fee that you pay, you essentially can get put into the regular pool in essence. But that just took away any advantage that people had. You allowed big business to come in and railroad it because you have no spine, because you don't really care about the people. And at the end of the day, what is it about? It's about money. It's about taxes.
They were willing to pay more.
Yep. Big business can provide you money and taxes. The little guy.
Yeah, up front and let you get a cut of it on the back end.
100%.
Yeah.
And I'm
100%.
sure, I mean, one could speculate that along with big business coming in, I'm sure they had some lobbyists or.
I'm sure.
Of course,
You know,
yeah.
there's that level of everything too, I assume.
Of
course.
They're paying for lawyers. Have you looked at the rates of lawyers and how much money
It's got to be astronomical.
Oh, it's crazy, right? I mean, some of these lawyers in the cannabis industry, you know, $300, $400, $500, $600, $700. I mean, dollars an hour, right? But I mean, that's everywhere. Lawyers are incredibly expensive. But yeah, if you've got money, it turns out that you do have an advantage. So social equity advantage versus the money advantage. I mean, there's no comparison. The money is always going to win out. So,
but it's so ironic that leading with that was the first thing they did with that promise,
Right.
just to turn around and basically like just dissolve that.
yeah, they pulled the rug out from everyone. They pulled the rug out from everyone and acted like it was okay. Oh, there's nothing wrong with that. Right? Are you guys kidding me? That's how you operate? No backbone, no spine. Okay. Got it. So then you start looking at the moving on from that piece of it, you start looking at the regulations and what it takes to actually get into the market. It's ridiculous, the amount of money. First off, the first thing you need to find is a property. Where can you operate, right? So the state did set some laws that required small towns and counties and things to have a certain number of cannabis businesses or allow a certain number of cannabis businesses based on the population. And I apologize, I don't remember that exact ratio. So they did set some stuff up to try to help us out, right? But a lot of these local governments, city, county governments, they were a massive barricade because they pigeonhole us into specific areas. Most of them just only allow you to operate in industrial areas.
Yep.
So then you have to buy a commercial property or rent a commercial property in an industrial area.
We're right there. You're pricing out your average small business.
Right. you're pricing it out.
You're not scaled to the point of being able to afford an industrial building anyways.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And even if you can find one that's affordable, you call the government up and they tell you no. I couldn't tell you how many zoning offices I've called from city and county zoning offices and how many have told me no. It's insane how many calls I made just to be told no. Why? There's always a reason why. They would give you a reason why, but it's every rule in the book that you can think of that they could pull to prevent you from operating. It's like, oh my gosh, it was so frustrating.
Now, what would be the incentive behind the local and smaller, counties and townships and zoning? What would be the incentive for them to tell you no? Because I feel like they would get a piece, right?
They
end
do.
Up being a thing.
I guess that's something you'd have to talk to the cities and counties why they feel like it needs to be zoned in an industrial zone, right?
Well,
like,
I think part of it goes back to an optics thing as well.
Sure.
I think a lot of these people that are in charge are under the notion that it's an evil thing.
Yeah, that
and
could
that
be too.
we don't want it in our community.
So
I think that's not 0% of it.
Right. Right. Well, and an interesting thing actually I had with the licensing issue that I was working through, and I don't want to name the city. I don't really want to put people on blast at that level, but there was a city that I was working with, and we were working on getting a license. Now I have a preliminary license, but there's a bunch of steps. So let me back up. I probably should explain this a little bit better. So when you apply for a license and you meet all the requirements, the write-ups, the business plan, all of the things that you're going to do to operate, the state will give you a preliminary license. From the day you get the preliminary license, and I got mine on May 31st of 2025, you have 18 months to open a business.
Or you lose your preliminary license?
As far as I know, you lose it. You may be able to
probably reapply or
maybe
whatever.
I honestly haven't looked into that piece of it.
Yeah.
Because it's like I'm trying to get into the market in 18 months versus
looking into what happens if you don't.
Right. I don't really want to look into that piece of it. So anyway, this city that I was working with are trying to figure this whole thing out. And essentially, one of the things that are required under the preliminary license, you have to have approval from the zoning office, from the local city, municipality, or county to operate a cannabis business. This particular city told me that you need to have, for us to give you authorization to operate, you have to have a final approved license by OCM. So OCM, think about this.
So it's a catch-22 then,
It's a catch-22. So what they're doing is they're saying, you have to have a final license for us to give you authorization. For instance, this is the city.
But in order to get the preliminary, you have to get permission from the local.
Correct. So it's totally opposing. They're opposing. So it's like, who's going to buckle on this, right? And I would suspect that the local city would need to buckle, but they stood firm. They didn't care. Come fight us legally. Pay for those lawyers. Once again, money. Money talks.
Mm-hmm.
That's what matters, right? And you'll see this is a reoccurring theme. It's money. It's always about money. Not only that, but look at the regulations. Look at some of the things that they require you to do. And I challenge anybody to go in and look at these regulations. They're absolutely insane, okay? The state requires you to purchase database software where you can track plants from seed to sale. You have to track every single thing that you do ever with that plant or that product, every single person who touches it, every person's license, their numbers need to be written on these labels. In fact, the standards for labeling are well beyond the standards that they require in prescription medication industries and in wine labels and other alcohol labels. It's well beyond that. So you're telling me these pharmaceutical companies can sell you things like OxyContin, which are essentially heroin, and they don't have to provide this sort of detailed information. They can sell you heroin, but me growing a plant, I have to provide all these licenses, all these numbers, all these requirements. And the reality of it is when you're talking about databases and tracking systems and you're talking about key card access systems and you're talking about video surveillance and you start talking about all the regulations, when you sit and look at the rules, you know what I hear when I'm reading the rules? Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. How much? I guess I'm not a millionaire. I don't know. I mean, if it takes $1 million, $2 million to get into the industry, does that help the social equity applicants? Or does that help big business block out social equity?
Totally.
So what are we going for?
Yeah, because they don't care. If they have deep enough pockets, they're like, well, I don't care what it costs. We're just going to do it.
Right. So just the regulations in and of itself are a deterrence because it's so cost prohibitive. It creates a barrier to entry that is totally unfair at every level. And I'm not saying that, you gotta allow us to cheat the system or change these rules or whatever the case might be. But it's like, my God, think about this stuff a little bit.
Yeah.
What kind of business can function? And, an interesting thing about this industry, in the cannabis industry, the success rate or the rate at which businesses become profitable, it's 17% of cannabis industries become profitable. That's because of the regulations and the heavy-handed way that government handles this in comparison to things like alcohol that you could easily argue are more dangerous. Now, I'm going to ask you, what do you think the percentage is for a normal business? What percentage of normal businesses become profitable? Just writ large.
I have no idea.
65%.
Wow. Higher than I thought, honestly.
Well, yeah, it is pretty high. But 65% of just take a scope of every business out there in the ether, 65% compared to 17% with cannabis. And you're not aware that there's a problem here? You're not aware that you're blocking out these social equity applicants?
Right.
You're not aware that big business is running the entire show right now? The thing that you claim that you didn't want to have happen, but you set it up in a way that's exactly what happened. And again, actions speak louder than words. Right now in the industry, actually, the Native Americans, because of the sovereign nation component to this, and big business are the ones that are in the market, and they're the ones that are profiting. And that is exactly what the state set this up. They set it up to benefit those two individuals. And I certainly am not, because with Native Americans, I mean, of course, the whole sovereign nation thing is a lot different. I don't want to get too far down into that rabbit hole, but the reality of it is the Native Americans are not held to the same standards. They have a massive advantage within the market, and it is what it is. It's a sovereign nation thing. I get it. But you turn around and then also give a massive advantage to big business,
right,
through regulation.
Yeah, if the only hurdle is money,
right,
that's really not a hurdle for the people that have enough of it.
Right. And here's another interesting thing. I remember I actually helped Al apply for his social equity applicant license. The state never even responded. They didn't do anything. They didn't respond. They didn't allow him to be in the market at all.
Which is kind of crazy considering he's, in a lot of ways, kind of the poster child for
right.
for the whole like social equity persona itself.
Right. 100%. And so it's like
he fit the bill.
Well, and that's my point. It's like, I thought it was supposed to be about social equity applicants. I can't think of many people that have been hurt more by the cannabis regulations than my brother and laws.
It's all crazy too, considering like from the jump, you and your brother tried to go about it
right,
the most transparent, working with the
right,
local, anywhere from local to the state,
right,
like putting in these applications,
right.
But 2 years later, just to get turn around and get burned.
2.5 years.
Like one could speculate. Like, I mean, you're giving them a lot of info throughout the process,
sure,
being very transparent.
Sure.
And that just feels gross.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do certainly understand that piece of it. I just look at it from the perspective of, I mean, what are we trying to do?
Right.
What's the point? What are we trying to do with this market? That's the conversation. It's like, to me, it just feels like people say a lot of things. Politicians in particular, they say they want this and that and the other thing, and that's good enough for voters apparently to vote for them.
And how many officials getting in office with that promise of the social equity program were elected in part of that, as part of their, it makes you wonder.
I would imagine.
How much of this goes on behind, like them setting this up? How much of that goes on behind closed doors or with outside the scope of us voting for someone in support or against these things? Like how much of that is going on?
Right.
How much control do we have as voters?
Yeah.
Right.
It's not zero.
Yeah.
It's definitely not zero.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's just frustrating to see all of these situations roll out, the regulations, things like that. And to take someone like my brother who's, got a criminal history, and I understand that. It's all centered around cannabis. He has no violent past.
but they don't see that.
I understand
They
that.
see the sheet and they see this guy's got a criminal history.
How can
He's a criminal.
So
It's the label.
I know, but when you look at it, how can you not look at somebody's charges and go, well, he doesn't have any weapons charges. He doesn't have any assault charges. He doesn't have any murder charges or rape charges or anything that's violent. He doesn't never stole anything from anyone. It's like, what are we talking about?
It's all nonviolent.
It's all nonviolent.
Let's show up in an armored vehicle.
So right, right, exactly. So think about it. I talked a little bit about what right government has to dictate to free people what we can and can't do with our own body and mind, right? I really am a firm believer in this. I believe that government has no right to dictate to free people what they can and can't do when it doesn't impact somebody else. Your freedom should be allowed up until the point that it impacts someone else.
Right.
Negatively, right? So that's what I believe in philosophically. I don't believe in this idea that, I don't agree with this morally, so we're going to make it illegal and we're going to put you in a cage. It's like, well,
that's not what it's about.
That's not a free society.
Right.
So, and I want to point to something that's really interesting with the state of Minnesota and this dichotomy that they have going on. So, and I want to read to you guys the state of Minnesota Constitution. And specifically, I want to read to you a part of the Constitution. Verbatim. No license required to peddle. Any person may sell or peddle the products of the farm or garden occupied and cultivated by him. That's the state of Minnesota Constitution.
Yeah.
So explain to me, based on that language, how or why, if a person, let's take a theoretical situation, somebody can grow up to 8 plants, 4 budding at one time. That's the legal standard in the state. Why is that person, if you're a small farmer, required to have a license to sell cannabis when the state of Minnesota Constitution reads like that? I can read it again, right? So think about this. No license required to peddle. Any person may sell or peddle the products of the farm or garden occupied and cultivated by him. Yeah. It's a constitutional right in this state. So interesting. I did a lot of research on this. It was really cool. So in the late 90s, and I'm sorry, I'm really bad with exact dates sometimes. In the late 90s, there were some people that sued the state of Minnesota over cannabis. They said, well, wait a minute. I should be able to legally sell cannabis.
Yeah, why can we not?
Mm-hmm.
It's a farm garden product. It's an agricultural product, right? Makes sense. Well, the state of Minnesota said, well, no, you can't because it's illegal.
Oh, was this hemp or cannabis? Or
Cannabis.
Was it? Okay.
Cannabis. It's illegal. At the time, this is the late 90s. Oh, I can understand that. It's illegal, right?
So then when they did flip 2 years ago,
two and a half years ago,
making it legal,
correct.
One could argue, there is an argument to be made, unless they came out with something that blocks it out or negates it.
Well, think about government, though. Can the government, think about federally speaking, the United States government, can the government infringe on your constitutional rights by making a law that directly infringes on your constitutional right?
Well, they've proven yes.
Well, that's a tough one, Cody. You kind of put me in a box there. I always think of Benjamin Franklin in this context because he once responded to a citizen when they were deciding on what type of government to create in this country, and a woman came up to him and said, "What kind of government did you create?" And he said, "A republic, if you can keep it." Part of keeping it is understanding how government is supposed to operate, understanding what constitutional rights that we have, and understanding that the government doesn't have the right to break our constitutional rights. And I would argue, Cody, yes, they have broken our constitutional rights because the lawyers, who are much smarter than us, right? They know better. They know what's best for us, right? They know. So they're the ones that set the laws. The judges, the lawyers, they set the rules. They determine these things. To me, it's simple, though. I look at something like this, and I don't understand how the state of Minnesota can have a constitutional right that allows you to grow farming products, whether it's corn, grapes, or whether it's cannabis, and you need a license to sell it. That's not right. Change your constitution then. Just come out and tell us you want to take away our freedom and you want to oppress us and put upon us tyranny then. Don't go behind our back with lawyers and people that know better. and take it away that way. Do you want your freedoms taken away in an underhanded way, or do you want them to just come out and say, we're going to take away your freedom?
Yeah, if it's going to happen either way, I'd like to know about it.
I would too.
That would be more comforting if at least they were transparent.
At least if they were transparent with it.
Very true.
Right? And so that's the thing that's frustrating. And so, not surprisingly, the state of Minnesota is embroiled in a lawsuit under this very specific thing right now. There are farmers that are suing the state of Minnesota over this. How is it that any judge in your right mind can look at something plain language that's a constitutional right and rule with the state that they have the authority to make you get a license based on this constitutional law? Explain it to me like I'm a kindergartner. You can't. It's immoral. It's unethical. It's anti-freedom.
Just the license, but also just the vast amount of red tape that comes with, getting a business established within that industry. Is just, it's incredibly insane.
It is absolutely insane. And you know what? I look at something like this, which is a freedom topic. This is freedom. This is our freedom that the government just takes away willy-nilly whenever they feel like, because the lawyers know better and they're smarter than us. I mean, allegedly, at least that's what I keep getting told.
Unless you can cough up enough to get one of those lawyers to navigate you through the web.
Right. If you have millions and billions of dollars, I mean, we see that you can rape children and actually not be held accountable. So you can do the most egregious things if you have money, obviously with Jeffrey Epstein. I look at something like this, though, and I think to myself, I go, is this what people want? They want government at this level? This is what you want? It's not a Democrat or Republic topic or conversation. Plain language right here. And you know what else I see here? Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. It's not about safety. It's not about helping a community. It's not about doing the right thing. It's about licensing and regulation so they can control you at every single aspect and they can get their money. And do what with it? I don't know. You tell me what they're doing in this state with money.
I think we're still trying to figure it out.
We could definitely do a part 2
We have no
episode.
idea.
Right.
We have no idea what they're doing with the money, is what we're finding out now.
I mean, make a national headline.
It's disappearing in thin air.
Whole nother rabbit hole right there, but
100%. And so here I'm kind of getting to the end of my rant, and you guys know me a little bit here. I'll go off on these tangents and start really getting passionate about these things. But I do believe in freedom. I'm a pro-freedom person, 100%. I would never, ever be affiliated with the Democrats, the Republicans, any political party whatsoever in my life, ever. I believe in freedom. That's it. I'm a principled person. Principles over party, period. I don't care what you have next to your name. A good idea is a good idea. What's right is what's right. We make the best decisions we can with the information that we have at the time. But let's talk about this regulation that the state of Minnesota thought was a great idea. And by the way, any chemist, and I'm not a chemist, so I don't want to speak for chemists per se, but in my research, any chemist would tell you this is one of the most asinine regulations you can possibly imagine, and it actually makes products less safe. So the state of Minnesota decided to put a 70% THC cap on products. It means products cannot contain more than 70% THC.
So what's that other 30%?
Yeah, 70% of the makeup of the product, or what is that exactly?
Right.
The concentration of it, or what?
Correct. 70% THC, right? So it's the amount of THC that you put into a product.
That makes no sense.
Do they have any follow-up that says, hey, it cannot contain this? Or is it just like leave it at that? Because it's like, I feel like
additives are up to you.
They do have regulations because it has to meet the same food and drug regulations, and it's not
right.
like you can, right. I mean, so there's a lot of different.
But
you can't put cyanide in your product,
right?
I mean, that's so there are things like that, of course, absolutely.
The way they're teeing it up is like it doesn't leave much room, or they're basically incentivizing to cut their product with something else.
But think about how many things that they're cutting these products with that are still not enough research on to find out. Like this is harmful.
Yes. And this is the conversation that we have to have and this is where chemists come into play. So if you know a professional chemist, you could probably ask them this and have a whole conversation. They could articulate it much better than me, right? I'm just an average person. So what do I know, right? But the 70% thing, this is a really interesting topic because there's something called live rosin, right? You guys heard of live rosin? Okay. My brother makes these carts right here. I could probably grab it. So I got one here. These are the carts that he makes, these live rosin carts, I guess. So I didn't really know anything about live rosin until recently when I started doing research on this, and I was fascinated by it. I didn't know anything about it. This is a natural process. It's a non-volatile extraction process. There is no additives, there's no chemicals used in this process to make this type of concentrate. There's a special process, and I apologize for any chemists out there. You guys can go ahead and berate me because I really don't know all the nomenclature. I'm going to try to explain it in my simple terms because I'm a very simple person, so I'm going to try to explain it in the terms that I understand.
I appreciate that because I'm also very simple.
Right. That's So I'm not a lawyer that knows everything. So, so with the cold extraction live rosin process, it's all natural. It's the same type of process that food companies use to get olive oil and other vegetable oils, right? And the most important thing is you're not using chemical. It's all organic. It's all a natural process. And with this specific cold extraction process, you get the most pure concentrate you could possibly imagine in the 90-some percentile, 95, 96, 97, 98%. It's ridiculously high. From my research, it takes a tremendous amount of cannabis just to get this concentrate down to this small amount. That's how pure it is. Okay.
And it's just heat and pressure, correct?
That's right. Yes.
Those are the only two.
Correct.
Whereas others, like, they use the chemicals to get that extraction out of it.
You got it. It's only heat and pressure. It's all natural. So in this state, again, this 70% cap, if you make something that's pure, it doesn't have anything added to it. It's just the actual concentrate itself. So if it's at, say, 96%, it's 96% pure. That's 96% of that has no other additives, no other things that you have to put in to cut it. It is the safest way to consume it. In fact, these live rosin, when I was doing research on this, people that consume live rosin vape carts are people with serious health conditions related to their lungs or cardiovascular issues, right? Because it is that safe to consume. It's much safer than just the regular combustible process of smoking marijuana, like we all think of, right? When you think of consuming cannabis. So the state, though, says, well, no, you can't do that. You can't make this natural, safe process because, again, we know better. We know better. We're lawyers, right? We know better than chemists. So you have to cut that down to 70%.
Yeah.
With what?
Exactly.
With what? What are we putting in there?
And this is the same with all the other products that you can infuse with it.
Yep.
So this goes for
correct.
Like the gummies,
all of it.
Yeah.
Yes. So what the government is saying with these regulations is we're going to make the product less safe for you to consume arbitrarily because we think 70%. Think about it. So if I have a product that has 69% THC, that's, of course, much safer than a product that has 71%.
That's like me giving you a burger and like, yeah, it's like 70% beef. You're good.
Right.
It's like, well,
right.
Wait.
How about 96%, 98%?
Yeah.
Like, let's talk about. And so when you think about this whole conversation and what these lawyers that, of course, know better, these politicians, they know better. I mean, they certainly know how to get our tax money, that's for sure. But one thing that they think about with this is they think about, well, overdosing and people. Again, this isn't alcohol.
Right.
People don't die from this stuff. And think about how ridiculous that is to think about this being a public safety issue. Think about how ridiculous this is. So let's say I have a gummy, right? And, the state just arbitrarily puts these regulations on, and it's only 5 milligrams per this little square of, because that's the 70% THC based on this little tiny square of cannabis that I consume. Okay, well, I just have this little square. And there's sugar and other things in it, of course, with gummies, natural flavors, artificial additives that who knows what's doing to our body, which is a whole nother conversation. But that's okay. We can allow big business to put those things in instead of having something that's pure.
Yep.
Because we need to cut it down to 70%. So instead of taking a small, so let's say you got a 5 milligram piece of gummy and you have a 100 milligram piece of gummy. Well, the 100 milligram piece of gummy gets the medical benefit that I need because of the pain that I have or whatever issue that I'm using it for, or just recreationally. It doesn't matter. So how does that prevent people from taking 100 milligrams because you just have to buy more 5 milligram gummies and just consume 20 gummies instead of consuming one.
Which is arguably worse because you're cutting it with these unknown additives and sugars
and everything else. So it's ridiculous on its face. The government is saying, we want you to consume 20 gummies that have, I don't know, artificial dyes and additives and things that we certainly allow because they've been, authorized by the FDA apparently. But God, if you make it too pure, boy, that's dangerous. That's 71%. We got a problem. We might have to put you in jail for it.
Yeah.
It just falls on its face. These regulations, the way that they blocked everything, the way I'm just so, and to be honest with you guys, I just get tired of the arrogance. I get tired of the arrogance of politicians that think that they know best. I get so tired of it. I'm exhausted, man. Not going to lie. Just tired of it. And here's an example right here. Pages of notes of the hypocrisy, of the proving that it's not about safety, it's about control, and it's about money. That's what it's about.
It's really what it comes down to.
Say that's what it's about. Come out and tell us that you don't want to help us. Come out and tell us that you want to promote big business. Come out and tell us that you want less safe products. Stop lying to us about it. Stop acting like you know best. I am never going to sit up here in any platform, in any conversation, and act like I know everything. I don't. I think about podcasting. I don't know anything about podcasting, Cody. Right? Like, you could tell me all sorts of things about podcasting that I have no idea.
Me neither.
All right. That's great. That's great. But I'm open to that, right? I'm open to understanding this basic fundamental idea that I don't know everything, and there's other people that know a lot more, and so you listen to people that know better. You don't act like you know everything, and you just decide these regulations, and you don't think through how it hurts people and how it damages families and how it takes away our tax money for fraud. So we can fund fraud.
Right.
Because the government can't apparently figure it out. Figure out how to watch out for our money. I don't know. I mean, it's insane.
You're so spot on that it feels obvious. It feels obvious that it's like, it's so frustrating because it is obvious.
Right.
To the average person.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like,
and it's kind of ironic too, considering where you have like with the way they have it set up, and then you have like Al's like the perfect example of like, hey, this is, the ideal way to go about it.
Right.
Was like Al's method of going pure, very wholesome connection,
right.
Very personal. Everything about it was just making the purest. But it's like you would think that. Like you would want that.
Yeah, why put up roadblocks to stop that?
But here, like the way the dice roll is that, that's actually the criminal. Like, is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Money.
And granted, too, I understand that, like, but laws are in place, too. You would think a society would want that, would value that versus what they do have set up.
Yeah.
When you just zoom out and just completely objective perspective.
Right. And that's the problem. Again, I go back to politicians. They don't talk to us in plain language other than to get us to hate each other, because they will spew some really hateful rhetoric that we should hate our fellow Americans.
Of course. Well, not only that, it's more profitable to do it that way, because then they can create these regulations under the guise of this is against the enemy. And it's really just, it's against the average person.
Yeah, it is. Simple. Read 1984, George Orwell. Perpetual war. It's all about division. It's all about getting us to hate each other. So the lawyers and the politicians, who, of course, know better, they know, what we should and shouldn't do, so they can control us. They can take away our freedom. They can tax us to death. At what point in time do people just get tired of the same old song and dance? Well, you better hate that other party because, boy, those are evil people. Are they really?
They want to tax you
right.
and take power.
But it's like, at the end of the day, are they really evil, or are you just telling me that they're evil?
Everyone has a different perspective.
Right.
It's just the lack of understanding someone else's perspective.
Right.
And it's easier to mark them as an enemy than to try to understand their position.
Right. And it's
really what it is.
Yeah. It is. And it just kills me, man. I can go on tangents about these conversations. I love history.
Yeah.
I study history extensively. Actually, Bodie and I were talking a little history, about, little World War I history before we jumped on the pod here.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think everything you said hits the mark right on the bullseye, and I don't think that any average person couldn't agree with what you've explained. And it just doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, obviously there's rules in place specifically that do help. It's not all bad, but there's a lot of them in place that do hurt.
Right.
And that is really the core of the argument here.
Yep.
So, I mean, we could go on all day about it.
Oh, we could. I
Realistically.
could. Yeah.
I mean, with that being said, I think that's a great way to summarize what's going on and a different perspective offered up on what people just see as a very public raid in a small community.
Right.
And I think that this hopefully enlightens people on more of the situation and the dynamic of how it's working and the lack of a clear path for someone to legitimately do it. And I think that this is a very eye-opening experience for me, but it just sucks that a good person is on the wrong side of the policy. Yeah. And I think that's the situation that we're in now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with that being said, is there anything that you want to close this out with? Is there anything else that you want to touch on that we haven't yet?
No, I really don't. I think I got everything out, and provided some of this perspective that people may not be aware of and some of the underhanded tactics that the state's using to make sure that they're collecting their tax dollars and these sorts of things. But, I mean, I'm sure nobody in the audience is going to be surprised that this occurs, right? I mean, this is kind of, standard procedure with government. I've spent much of my life around government, so I totally understand how it works and what the processes are and everything else. And so to that end, I don't have anything else to add, but I really just want to say, Bodie, Cody, I sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate you guys coming on. I'm sorry. I appreciate you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Right? Thanks for having us, right? Well, I could have said it like that because, I did kind of commandeer the entire show.
That's
and
the whole point.
Yeah. You guys
that's the whole point.
You did it.
You got to listen to me ramble the whole time. But I just know, and I'm sincere with this too, because I really appreciate you giving me this platform to allow me to articulate these thoughts and these things, because I think the average people out there would agree with a lot of what I'm saying. And I'm not saying I have the answer to every little solution, every little thing that we talked about today, but I can see injustice, I can see anti-freedom,
totally,
and I can see tax exploitation. I can see these things as plain as day.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for the people in the state and any responsible citizen to understand these things. And so from the bottom of my heart, I just absolutely appreciate you guys allowing me to have this platform to articulate these things so that there's a more awareness towards these things that are occurring within our society.
Our pleasure.
And anytime you want me to come back on, I certainly would. I, again, love to talk about all sorts of issues that are in this type of vein anyway.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
I just appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And likewise, man, I think it's really important to, as like coming from you, from a guy who's worked with the government most of his life,
all my life,
understands how to navigate like the red tape jargon.
Yes.
And all just extract that information and throw it back out into the ether in a very comprehensible, easy to understand way. I think it's really important to offer that perspective of, hey, like, when you see the headlines of this raid, it's like, well, like here actually is the deep dive.
Right.
And
here's the why.
Yeah. I think it's really important to offer that perspective to everybody.
Totally.
To really get a full sense of what's going on.
Completely agree. Well, with that being said, guys, I think this is a good point to wrap this up. I think more of the story, free Al.
Free Al.
Free Al. Free DECA Al.
Let's get our boy out.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
All right.
We'll see you later.
Yeah.